The Galactic Empire's flagship, Omnipotence, orbited a dying red star like a silent predator. The ship itself was the size of a small continent, bristling with weapon arrays, sensor clusters, and a diplomatic suite more elaborate than most planetary capitals. The council chamber, an amphitheater of glass, steel, and bioluminescent fungus, awaited its latest curiosity, a human diplomat. He arrived late. Ambassador Jonas Harper stepped off the shuttle wearing a navy blue suit, scuffed boots, and a lopsided grin. He carried a leather briefcase in one hand and a steaming metal thermos in the other. The escort committee, a seven-limbed crustacean in a ceremonial sash and a vaporous being floating inside a containment orb, paused in confusion. "Afternoon, folks," Jonas said, stepping into the chamber like he was walking into a backyard barbecue. "Hope I didn't keep anyone waiting. Space traffic, you know." The crustacean, High Chamberlain Farhan, flexed its pincers in disapproval. "You were scheduled for arrival 2 rotations ago. The Empress does not tolerate inefficiency." "Then I should thank her personally," Jonas said brightly. "If she's willing to wait for me, she must be one hell of a forgiving leader." The crustacean clacked, unsure if it was being mocked. Jonas offered his thermos. "Tea?" No one accepted. The Galactic High Council had convened in full, and each species sat in a stylized diplomatic throne. There was the jelly mass of the Ilari, pulsing with color-coded tension. The insectoid General Yeager, his mandibles twitching. A cube-shaped intelligence, Chermak, floated silently on anti-grav tethers, watching with mechanical precision. At the center, on a throne grown from living coral and bone, sat Empress Vraxia. Her tentacles draped elegantly over the carved arms of the seat, her voice a chorus of harmonized whispers. "You are Jonas Harper of the Terran Confederation," she said, her tendrils motionless. "You arrive without military escort, without ceremony, without offering." Jonas took a sip of tea and smiled. "I brought biscuits." The silence was immediate and profound. From his briefcase, he produced a tin of shortbread cookies and placed it carefully on the negotiation table. "Human custom. You folks don't have food diplomacy? Tragic. Your species is unpredictable," Vraxia murmured. "And irrelevant." "That's funny," Jonas replied, setting down his thermos. "Because you invited us." He adjusted his cuffs and met the Empress's 1,000 eyes with calm, unblinking confidence. The message was subtle, but it slid across the room like a blade under silk. "I'm not here to beg." The council buzzed. A whisper here, a scan there. Jonas could feel the tension shifting, not with his body. He was terrible at reading alien pheromones, but from the way voices got tighter, more precise. Words like observation and containment replaced dialogue and treaty. Yeager broke the silence. "Humans are apex predators of a minor gravity well world. Your biology is inefficient. Your planet unremarkable. Your civilization, statistically doomed." Jonas smiled wider. "Thank you for doing the research, General. I always appreciate when someone reads the brochure." Yeager narrowed his compound eyes. Jonas leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Let's play a game. I'll admit we're backward savages if you can answer one question." Yeager clicked. "Speak. How many human ships are currently in this sector?" The silence returned, colder this time. "None," Vraxia answered. "We permitted your single diplomatic vessel under strict surveillance. That was the agreement." "Correct," Jonas said. "Now ask yourself, why would a species as statistically doomed as ours send just one man into the lion's den?" A ripple passed through the delegates. Chermak's light pulsed erratically. Its processors began sifting through predictive models, timelines, and security anomalies. Something wasn't right. "Are you suggesting a threat?" The Empress hissed, her voice lowering a half octave. Jonas noticed the change, not fear but curiosity. He shook his head. "No, Your Majesty. I'm suggesting hospitality. You see, we humans tend to smile when we're nervous. And when we're angry. And, most dangerously, when we're patient." He stood slowly, every movement deliberate. You want to know what I'm doing here? Why I came alone? It's because war isn't declared by armies anymore. It's declared in conversations. Jonas walked over to the council's central display and tapped it. The screen flickered, then revealed a rotating map of the Empire's territorial borders. He pointed. These routes, he said casually, are your primary military corridors. They're vulnerable to gravitational disruption within these red zones. That would delay supply lines, split fleets. We noticed your maintenance cycle windows are all synced. Curious oversight. The delegates froze. I'm a simple man, Jonas said. I wear cheap suits. I eat canned beans. I grew up in a trailer park next to a military drone scrapyard. But I do read a lot. And when someone sends me an invitation with gold trim and encrypted coordinates, I figure it's probably not for tea and biscuits. You are violating the terms of diplomacy, Chermak chimed. Jonas walked back to his seat, sipping his tea. No, I'm redefining them. The door opened behind him. His guards, supposedly unarmed, walked in with scanners and datapads. They were smiling too. Chermak's scan reported 0 weapons, but unusual neural encryption patterns in the human support team. Psychological shielding. Behavioral irregularities. Jonas spread his arms. You wanted to see what humanity could offer the galaxy. Consider this our resume. Adaptable. Curious. Dangerous. We don't invade first. We wait. We watch. Then we walk in through the front door. The Empress leaned forward. We invited you in peace. And I came in peace, Jonas agreed. But let me tell you something, Empress. You try to kill me, and I know that vote's happening soon. You won't just wake up to war. You'll wake up to a galaxy that suddenly realizes humans are very good at pretending to be weak. The Empress was silent. Her tendrils trembled, slightly. Jonas's voice softened. We survived our own extinction a dozen times before we left our orbit. Nukes. AI. Biowarfare. Bureaucracy. And every time we got stronger. You think we're fragile because we laugh a lot. Because we talk to ourselves. Because we name our bombs things like diplomatic immunity. But that's just camouflage. He tapped the tin of cookies. This is the bait. The smile is the trap. And the handshake? That's the distraction. Vraxia's eyes narrowed. Are you here to threaten us, human? Jonas grinned. Oh no. I'm here to see if you're smart enough not to kill me. That's the test. If I leave alive, maybe Earth will think the Empire's ready for a real conversation. If not... He stood again. Well, I hope you have good insurance. The crustacean delegate made a clicking sound that resembled laughter, or perhaps fear. Yeager looked visibly rattled. Chermak had begun encrypting its own memory core. Jonas glanced at his watch. Well, it's been fun. I've got another meeting in 7 hours, and I'd like to avoid being assassinated before lunch. Empress, council members, thank you for your time. He began walking toward the exit, then paused and turned. Oh, and one last thing, he said, voice almost playful. You might want to call off that hit squad you've got waiting in maintenance bay C. They're about to run into something inconvenient. Before anyone could respond, the display behind him changed again, this time showing the security feed from Bay C. The assassination team lay unconscious, neatly stacked like luggage. A single sticky note was affixed to one helmet. You misspelled welcome. JH. Jonas smiled again. Then he walked out. The council chambers sat in a stunned silence, the stench of ozone and fear beginning to replace the calculated detachment of protocol. Empress Vraxia exhaled a slow, shivering breath. Reconvene the War Council, she said, voice low. But she already knew. They had invited a diplomat. What they got was a warning. The Omnipotence's corridors were pristine, clinical, and almost disturbingly silent. Designed to carry the weight of the Empire's will, they now pulsed with unease. The failed assassination squad, found crumpled and tagged like misbehaving schoolchildren, had been a warning, and the fact that the human diplomat Jonas Harper remained utterly composed only twisted the blade deeper into the Council's pride. Officially, nothing had changed. The diplomatic process would continue. Unofficially, every member of the High Council now viewed Jonas as a problem no one had been trained to solve. Jonas, for his part, was having breakfast. His guest quarters were lavish by alien standards. Panoramic views of the star, zero-grav furniture, a sleep pod large enough to fit a Terran shuttle. He sat at a metal table eating scrambled eggs from a pouch, humming an old blues tune. The door opened with a hiss. Yeager entered unannounced, his insectoid limbs clicking against the floor like knives on tile. He wore ceremonial armor, but Jonas could smell the anxiety through the general's overcompensating posture. "You eat?" Jonas asked casually, holding up a pouch. "No idea what these are made of. Says egg product on the side. That's either inspiring or terrifying." Yeager ignored the offer. "You have crossed boundaries. This game you play, it is unacceptable." Jonas gestured with his spoon. "You mean surviving?" "Yeah, I get that a lot. You humiliate us. You expose our military flaws. You flaunt your subterfuge in public. You mock the Empress." Jonas stood, walked to the wall panel, and keyed in a command. A soft tune began to play, somewhere between jazz and synthesized rain. "I didn't expose your military flaws," he said calmly. "I noticed them. Big difference." Yeager's mandibles clicked. "You should be removed." "Probably," Jonas agreed. "But you won't." The general said nothing. "Because here's the thing," Jonas continued, setting his spoon down and folding his arms. "I know this empire. I know how it reacts to threats. Swiftly. Brutally. Without remorse. And yet, I'm still here. Why do you think that is, General?" Yeager hesitated. "You're afraid," Jonas said softly. "You're not used to something you can't predict. You thought humans would be all smiles and gratitude and awkward diplomacy. But we're not. We're difficult." "You are unstable," Yeager snapped. "No," Jonas said with a slow grin. "We're adaptable. And that scares the hell out of you." The general stormed out without another word. A few hours later, Jonas was invited, or rather summoned, to a cultural exchange ceremony. The message claimed it was an opportunity to foster goodwill through interspecies appreciation. Jonas called it what it was: attempted assassination number 2. He accepted without hesitation. The chamber was domed and humid, filled with alien musicians, scholars, and performance artists. Delegates from all corners of the empire mingled in what could only be described as tense civility. A floating tray offered exotic drinks. Jonas grabbed two, one with a fizzing purple liquid, the other with something that looked like carbonated jellyfish. "Cheers," he muttered to no one. From across the room, Chermak observed, its cube-like body glowing with internal activity. It had run simulations all night, and none predicted Jonas would voluntarily attend this event. Jonas approached the AI with a charming grin. "You guys don't have jazz, do you?" "I am unfamiliar." Jonas tapped his temple. "Pity. It's music designed to make the brain twitch." He turned away and accidentally bumped into a tall, scaled being wearing a translator collar. The being snarled. "Apologies," Jonas said sincerely. "Didn't mean to ruffle your scales." "You should watch where you step, soft skin," the being growled. Jonas's smile held. "Absolutely. Or someone might trip." He kept walking, leaving the alien blinking in confusion as it realized its drink had vanished. Jonas made his way to the buffet table, laden with delicacies from every corner of the empire. Some foods shimmered. Some twitched. Others emitted polite clicking sounds. He took a plate and carefully selected a few that looked least likely to scream. From above, in the observation bay, Empress Vraxia watched silently. "He is unfazed," she said. "Why?" Chermak's voice buzzed through the intercom. "Because, Empress, he is not a diplomat." "Explain." "He is a mirror. He reflects what we project. When we threaten, he becomes steel. When we smile, he becomes wine. When we test him, he tests back." Vraxia stared down. "Then why has he not acted?" Chermak pulsed. Because he is still measuring. Jonas returned to his quarters late that evening. No one had managed to poison him, stab him, or push him through an airlock, though the buffet's translucent clams had tried. He'd spent most of the evening deflecting microaggressions with laughter, and turning pointed insults into compliments so confusing that his assailants walked away doubting themselves. He was brushing his teeth with military-issue foam when his wrist comm chimed. A voice, shaky but deliberate, whispered, "They're going to try again. In 10 minutes. Corridor Delta 4. Jonas didn't reply. He spat into the sink, checked his collar, and walked out. Delta 4 was quiet. Too quiet. The lights dimmed subtly, imperceptible to most, but Jonas had been trained to notice. He passed a maintenance drone that paused too long. He waved. It twitched and rolled away. At the junction, 3 figures waited in the shadows. They stepped forward as Jonas approached, tall, silent, and clad in stealth armor. One held a blade. Another a neural disruptor. Jonas sighed and raised his hands. Okay. You got me," he said. "Just one thing." They paused. "Your boots untied," Jonas said. The nearest assassin glanced down on instinct. Jonas struck. The move was simple, brutally efficient. He grabbed the disruptor wielder by the wrist, twisted, and drove an elbow into the neck plate. The suit hissed and collapsed. Before the others could react, Jonas was already moving. A feint. A kick. The blade went skittering. He ducked low, swept a leg, and drove a fist into the second assassin's throat. The last one ran. Jonas didn't pursue. He knelt beside the nearest body, checked the breathing, and left a small patch embroidered with a smiling earth on the chest. When security arrived minutes later, all they found was a single message burned into the wall with a handheld plasma torch. Still here. Still smiling. The next morning, the Empire officially halted all cultural events. Security doubled. Council meetings were limited to voice-only communications. Even the Empress didn't show her face. Jonas was invited, carefully, diplomatically, to a private consultation aboard the Empire's strategic command deck. He accepted with his usual, disarming warmth. He arrived with a peace offering, a chessboard. General Yeager was already there, along with Chermak and 3 additional members of the High Council. Jonas set up the board in silence. "I've always liked this game," he said as he placed the pieces. "Simple rules. Complex outcomes. Kinda like diplomacy." He moved first. A pawn. Yeager watched, unmoving. Jonas leaned back. "I assume this isn't about playing chess." "It is about understanding your kind," Chermak replied. "We have scanned your history. It is inconsistent." "That's accurate," Jonas agreed. "We're a contradiction. Poets and killers. Explorers and hoarders. Kindness wrapped in teeth." "Why did you come here alone?" one council member asked. "Because we needed to know who you were," Jonas replied. "And we needed you to underestimate us." "You are one man," Yeager said. Jonas smiled. "Exactly." He moved another piece. "If I were an army, you'd treat me like one. You'd brace. Prepare. Fortify. But one man? You get careless. You talk too much. You try things. Like poisoning my tea." No one spoke. Jonas's tone sharpened. "I've survived 3 assassination attempts. And all I did was offer peace. What do you think Earth's going to do when they find out?" Yeager growled. "You would bring war?" Jonas's eyes narrowed. "No, General. You would. I'm just the guy who takes notes and tells stories. But make no mistake, if I go down, my species won't send diplomats next time. They'll send strategists. Hunters. Problem solvers. And they'll do it smiling." He moved his queen. "Check." Chermak's lights dimmed slightly. "You planned all this." "I prepared for all this. Planning assumes control. I just knew the odds." Yeager slammed a fist onto the table. "You are dangerous. And you're just now figuring that out." Jonas stood, collected his chessboard, and turned to leave. "Thanks for the game. Let me know if the Empress wants to play next time. I hear she's got a great poker face." As the door shut behind him, the chamber erupted into quiet chaos. Every council member was speaking at once, some demanding action, others insisting on delay. But none could agree on what Jonas Harper really was. They'd thought he was prey. He wasn't. He was a question. One they no longer knew how to answer. The chamber of final negotiations was nothing short of sacred. Suspended within the uppermost spire of the omnipotence, it was carved from a transparent alloy stronger than diamond, offering a full panoramic view of the collapsing red star beyond. Most species found the sight awe-inspiring. Jonas Harper found it a little dramatic. Still, he appreciated the effort. The chamber was circular, with thrones arranged in a half-moon. The Empress's seat stood alone at the far end, pulsing softly with ambient bioluminescence. There were no guards. No weapons. Only words were allowed here, according to ancient law. A last vestige of civility before declarations turned into detonations. Jonas entered with a slow, deliberate stride. His suit was pressed. His expression was neutral. He carried no briefcase this time, just a simple folder in one hand and a disposable coffee cup in the other. The beverage steamed gently, as though unaware it was about to witness a galactic incident. "Good morning," he offered, voice crisp and pleasant. The Empress inclined her head slightly. Her tendrils did not move. "Ambassador Harper, you stand before the highest council of the Galactic Empire. Today we determine the fate of our relations with your species." Jonas nodded, then gestured to the chairs. "So, we sitting for this, or is it one of those dramatic standoff things? My feet are killing me." No one laughed. He sat anyway, placing the folder neatly on the table and taking a sip of coffee. Vraxia's voice, though soft, echoed with centuries of power. "This chamber honors diplomacy above all. Yet your actions have threatened the balance. You have humiliated military officials, exposed classified data, and resisted lawful intervention." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "You mean assassination?" "A lawful intervention," she repeated. "I'd say that's a matter of perspective," Jonas replied, smiling faintly. "For example, from where I'm sitting, someone just tried very hard to keep me quiet. Repeatedly. That makes it less of a negotiation and more of a prelude." "Then speak," Vraxia said. "Let this be your final address." Jonas placed his coffee down, uncapped the folder, took a breath. "All right," he said. "Let's talk." He stood and began to pace, not aggressively, but with the comfortable rhythm of a professor lecturing a classroom full of gifted students who didn't know they were about to be scolded. "You see, humans love stories. We breathe them, live them. Our civilizations were built on myths long before we had science. The galaxy? That's just a new myth. A big, loud, shiny place full of ancient empires and noble traditions. And you, Empress, you're the centerpiece. The dragon at the end of the world. The eternal ruler." He paused, looked up at the red star beyond the glass. "Thing is, dragons don't scare us like they used to. We made our own, and then we killed them. With sticks. And rocks. And eventually with math." Vraxia's eyes narrowed. "We didn't come to this galaxy to take over," Jonas continued. "We came to be invited. We sent out messages, peaceful, friendly ones. We hoped someone would answer. And when you did, we were thrilled." He turned to face them all. "And then we realized what we'd walked into." Chermak's surface shimmered, a subtle fluctuation of processing. "You don't want friends. You want obedience. That's your brand of peace. A big, quiet galaxy where everyone speaks in whispers and no one challenges your throne. That's not peace. That's stagnation." The room shifted. No one moved, but the temperature dropped metaphorically. Vraxia's tendrils coiled, just slightly. Jonas stepped forward. "Humans don't do whispers. We ask questions. Loud ones. The kinds of questions that shake the foundations of things." "You claim to seek peace," Vraxia said coldly. "Yet your presence has brought only discord." Jonas reached into the folder and pulled out a small, black disk. He set it on the table and tapped it once. A hologram appeared. Hundreds of star systems, each highlighted in red. Intersections of trade routes. Fleet paths. Supply chains. Choke points. This, Jonas said, is your empire. It's beautiful. Efficient. But brittle. He tapped again. The map flickered, revealing simulation overlays, blockades, disruptions, cascading failures. This is what happens if humans decide to fight back. One of the council members gasped. Another whispered something in a language that translated only as dread. You see, Jonas continued, Earth isn't a superpower. Not yet. We don't have your fleets. Your dreadnoughts. Your centuries of control. What we do have is the most dangerous thing a species can possess. He leaned in. Options. Vraxia's voice dropped to a whisper. This is a declaration. Jonas shrugged. If it were, I wouldn't be here. He stepped back, gave them all a moment to absorb the weight of the data. Then he smiled again. Soft, patient, somehow terrifying. This isn't a threat. It's a suggestion. Don't mistake our hospitality for weakness. Don't mistake our diplomacy for submission. We talk first because we want to avoid war. Not because we fear it. Chermak spoke then, its voice a synthetic monotone. Your strategy has layers. It is not merely deception. It is theater. Jonas nodded. Now you're getting it. Another hologram appeared, this one showing human vessels. Small, fast, seemingly insignificant, but marked across critical systems in the outer sectors. They're not battlecruisers, Jonas said. They're observers. Scientists. Analysts. People with curious minds and excellent aim. Vraxia stared at him. And if we remove them? Then Earth stops talking. The implication was crystal clear. Jonas took a final sip of his coffee, then picked up the black disk. Slid it back into the folder. Closed it gently. You wanted to know what humanity is, he said. You wanted to measure us. You thought we were something new, something tame. But the truth is, we've been here all along. You just didn't notice us until we smiled. He turned to leave. Wait, Vraxia commanded. If you are not here to declare war, then what is this? Jonas paused at the threshold. Didn't look back. It's a favor. A favor. For you, he said. For the galaxy. Because now you have a chance. You can choose a different path. One that doesn't end with us burning down everything you've built. But that door is only open for a little while. After that. He turned, finally, and smiled that same maddening, disarming grin. Well, I'd hate to see what comes after. The doors opened silently, and Jonas stepped through, leaving the council in stunned silence. Back in his quarters, he sent a short, encoded message. It bounced off relay satellites, filtered through multiple civilian channels, and vanished into a wormhole laced with quantum keys. 3 words. It's almost time. Moments later, a ripple distorted space just outside the dying star's gravity well. Then another. And another. One by one, human ships decloaked. They did not broadcast. They did not move. They simply existed, each one a quiet promise hanging in the dark. Jonas sat by the window, watching the galaxy tilt. He had given them a choice. Now, it was up to them to decide what came next. The stars didn't blink. They vanished. One by one, across sectors previously marked as safe and secure, signals died. Not with a bang, not with visible fire or panic, but with eerie silence. Empire outposts, supply beacons, observation buoys, all dark. No comms. No warnings. Just emptiness where presence used to be. It began minutes after Jonas Harper walked out of the negotiation chamber. The High Council had not dismissed, not officially. They sat there, each member suspended in a private horror spiral, absorbing the implications of the human's words. The holograms he left behind were still active, running simulations in perfect silence, repeating the same scenario. Minor disruptions at vulnerable points cascading into an unstoppable collapse. Each model predicted not conquest, but disintegration. Then the reports started arriving. One from the Althair mining triad. Supply ship 7 failed to dock. No known impact. Another from the Ilari Spindle Gate. Transit corridor unresponsive. Visual confirmation of foreign hulls in orbit. None carried weapon signatures. None offered demands. It was surgical. Cold. Familiar only to those who'd studied the most efficient predators, the ones that never roared until their jaws had already clamped down. Empress Vraxia paced her private sanctum, long tendrils flexing in rhythmic tension. The air had gone dry, scrubbers fighting the rising heat of her agitation. She had not slept. Not spoken, save to issue a single order. Find the human. But Jonas Harper had vanished. Not off the ship. Not from life. Just from their view. As if, now that the galaxy was watching, he'd stepped behind the curtain again. In reality, Jonas sat comfortably in a low-traffic engineering bay near the ship's waste processing systems, an area of precisely zero strategic value. His small communications terminal buzzed with encoded reports, some of them annotated with cheeky doodles. One had a cartoon squid labeled, "Possible war criminal?" Underlined twice. He smiled at that one, sipped from a new thermos of tea, and tapped the send button. Each message was short, calm, polite. Confirm forward position. Maintain passive posture unless provoked. Log Ilari withdrawal. Congratulate Lieutenant Zhao on successful disarmament of Spindle Gate. Send her that playlist she likes. Do not fire unless someone shoots first. Even then, give them 5 seconds to apologize. We're not monsters. Across the sector, human ships didn't attack. They appeared. They blocked. They rerouted, jammed, shut down without violence, but always with precision. Automated Empire stations played classical Earth music on loop. Chopin, Billie Holiday. Occasionally an intentionally unnerving children's rhyme about spiders and patience. The psychological effect was enormous. General Yeager found himself pacing as well. He hated that it reminded him of Jonas. Hated more that every projection from his war council ended in either total defeat or mutual annihilation. There was no path to victory. No path to revenge. Only stalemate or surrender, both unacceptable. But most damning of all? He couldn't explain how it happened. No great fleet emerged from behind Saturn's rings. No doomsday weapon was unveiled. Just humans. Quiet. Watchful. Dangerous. Every observer ship was now confirmed to have electronic warfare capabilities. Every science vessel had been retrofitted with countermeasures that Empire systems failed to detect. Even the drones were weaponized in subtle ways. One outpost reported being swarmed by what appeared to be food delivery bots carrying high-grade EMP payloads. Jonas had warned them with a smile. And now the smile had turned into a blade. In the shadows of the diplomatic decks, a small group of elite advisors met without authorization. Chermak hovered at the center of the circle, its lights dimmed to a whisper. There is no path where escalation favors us, it admitted. Human adaptability exceeds projection parameters. They mock us, hissed a Serpentine delegate. They disable us without killing. As if we're a game. No, Chermak said. They are not mocking. They are choosing. Choosing what? Chermak's glow flickered in an imitation of a sigh. How loud their retaliation needs to be. Elsewhere on the Empire's secondary command satellite orbiting Dervaxis Prime, a veteran tactical officer, Commander Senkal, watched 27 ships retreat without firing a single shot. They had, according to witnesses, left a handwritten note on a buoy. This isn't war. It's a courtesy. Back aboard the Omnipotence, Jonas reappeared. He didn't storm into the control deck. He walked in as if returning from a lunch break. His suit was slightly wrinkled. There was a smudge of tea on his collar. Everyone stopped speaking when they saw him. Jonas raised a hand in greeting. Hope I'm not interrupting. Vraxia turned to face him. What are you doing here? Following up, Jonas said pleasantly. Thought I'd check in. You know. See if anyone had made any decisions. Yeager moved forward, but slowly, like a man approaching a familiar bear trap. You dare walk in here after what you've done? I haven't done anything, Jonas said. Neither has Earth. Yet. What you're experiencing is what we call proactive caution. You've paralyzed half the sector. Untrue, Jonas replied, shrugging. Everything's still functioning. We've just encouraged everyone to take a long, hard look at their logistics. The Empress studied him. She said nothing. Her silence now carried weight. Jonas met her gaze. No ultimatums. No conquests. Just a question. She gestured subtly. Ask it. Do you still want to try and kill the diplomat? The room froze. No one answered. Not out loud. But Jonas didn't need words. He already knew. He placed a small silver disc on the table. This time, no maps. No simulations. A video. It played in silence. A montage of species they'd never seen. Humans mingling with non-empire civilizations on the galactic fringes. Sharing food. Swapping stories. Teaching languages. Building bridges. One image lingered. A human child and a crystalline life form huddled over a chessboard. Laughing. This is what we want, Jonas said. Not territory. Not thrones. Just room. To exist. To connect. But we will not grovel for it. We will not ask nicely if you prove you only respect strength. Yeager, stunned into silence, finally muttered. Then why didn't you conquer us outright? Jonas smiled. Because we like you. Even now. He tapped the disc again. The image changed. A network of human diplomatic outposts, civilian science vessels, joint ventures with willing partners. Non-empire worlds drawn voluntarily into a different kind of alliance. One that didn't use dreadnoughts for diplomacy. We're not here to build an empire. We're here to break the mold. The Empress finally spoke. And if we say no? Then Earth will leave. Quietly. Peacefully. But not alone. We'll take the future with us. She didn't flinch. But she didn't argue. Jonas leaned in, voice lower now. And if you say yes, we'll remember who chose to evolve. Vraxia studied him for a long moment. The chamber around them felt suspended in something heavier than gravity. It wasn't fear. It was consideration. Then, finally, she did the one thing no one expected. She stood. With elegant finality, she stepped down from her coral throne and extended a single tendril. Not in command, but in invitation. Jonas took it. A gesture. A handshake in alien form. Behind them, the Empire trembled. But not from violence. From the sheer realization that a new era was being born. One not of domination, but of deliberate, begrudging cooperation. The war never came. Because they finally understood. Humanity didn't start fights. They just made ending one a nightmare. Jonas left the chamber not as a diplomat, but as a harbinger of something vast and transformative. Not because he had fired a shot, but because he'd made every empire remember that sometimes, the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy, is a calm voice, a warm smile, and a map of all your blind spots. Back aboard his ship, Jonas stood at the observation deck. Earth was still months away by normal drift. But distance meant nothing to a species that had learned to wrap strategy in charm and threat in velvet. He didn't watch the empire crumble. He watched it recalculate. And as the ship turned toward home, he took one last sip of tea and murmured to himself, "Next time, maybe we bring cookies." He was still smiling. But now, the galaxy knew exactly what that meant.